All right, continuing on from the previous video, we have some code that we need to clean up that's playing in the console window based off of the fact that we were testing out the horizontal movement. So let's go back into our code. So I'm going to go to the project. Inside of the assets, we have in our scripts folder the player controller. I'm going to double click the player controller, open up the player controller back here, and I'm going to remove this test, this debug test. Now what I want to do down here is I'm going to create a procedure called horizontal force or horizontal force. So I'm going to call this, create a private. It's not horizontal wrap, it's horizontal force. Or how about we put add, so I'm going to say force. Add horizontal force. And it's a void. And in here, I'm going to take this code right here and put it in here. Right under that, I'm going to go ahead and add the force to this body 2D that we have up here. So this body 2D dot velocity, and we're going to add, not velocity yet, we're going to go ahead and add the add force. We're going to add a force, then we're going to add the velocity. So we're going to go ahead and add the force, and that's going to take, let's see, it says it's going to take a vector 2D, which is acting as the force, in the force mode 2D. And we only need to give it a vector 2D. We don't have to give it that force mode 2D thing. So all I need to do is say a vector 2D, and I'm going to call the right of the vector 2D, and then I'm going to multiply this by that horizontal movement thing we saw. Remember the numbers we saw inside of the console. When we would push left, it was going to -1. When we push right, it would go to 1. And when we would release the keys, it would go to 0. And then we need to add that to the max speed, because that's going to determine how far or how fast we're going. Now, if you look at this, whenever this says negative, it's going to multiply all these by negatives, which means it's going to reverse it. When it is positive, it's going to go forward, and when it is 0, it nullifies everything. And so even though it's adding a force, it's adding a 0 force at that point. So we're constantly adding a force, but we're only moving things by the numbers themselves. Now what I can do is I can go ahead and take this, I'm going to put this up here. And then from here, what I want to do is now go ahead and add that velocity. And actually, I can go ahead and I'm going to put that down here with the force. I'm not even going to mess with it up here. I'm going to go over here and for this body 2D dot velocity, it's going to equal a new vector 2D. And then I'm going to clamp it. So I'm going to use the math function, and then I'm going to clamp it from there. Clamp. And basically the clamp needs an x-axis and a y-axis. So I'm going to give it the velocities x minus, well, actually the velocities x and the velocities y. So in here we'll put this body 2D dot velocity dot x. And so, yeah, because we're going to end up using 2 clamps, so I'm going to call that max speed. And then, so this one piece right here is the first vector 2D. So I'm going to highlight this. This is the first part of the vector 2D. Now the second part of the vector 2D is technically going to be the same thing as this, except it's basically going to be the same thing as this, except I'm going to change the x to a y. Format this just a little bit. Now, just with that little bit of code, we're able to now get some of the functionality that we expect to get out of our player. We can select our player and see that on our player here, we already have from the last video the player controller attached to it. And basically the way we can do that is drag this over here or drag it onto the player and it will attach to it. So let's see this actually in action. I'm gonna go ahead and drag this over here and hit play. Now one thing we'll notice, it looks like it's not moving, right? But in actuality it may be moving. Let's look at this max speed. And there it is. It's because of the max speed it wasn't moving. We had the max speed down to 1. So I put it to 10 here, and that's why now it's moving. I put that to 20, and you'll see it's moving anymore. But he's sliding off and stuff everywhere. So there's a few things we need to do to fix this. First, what we need to do is we need to change this max speed. So I'm going to change this max speed to 10. Actually, I'm going to change this max speed. Yeah, maybe it's something like 10 initially, okay? And then you'll notice it's sliding around. So basically what I want to do is I'm going to go here to the rigid body 2D. And this linear drag, I'm going to change to something like, let's try a few. I'm going to change 2. Let me go ahead and try this out. Oh, wait, our max speed is still at 1. There we go. So let me try the linear drag here. Where's that linear drag? Right here. Now let me try 2. And let me try 3, see what that does. So I think maybe if I push him over here, I'm gonna change this gravity here to 3. Linear drag could be 3. Angular drag is fine. Put this to 20. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. Okay, so these are the settings we want. And remember, we're in play mode. So if I hit stop, it's going to remove all these settings. So I can go ahead and copy the component. Then I can stop it. And then I can go here and paste the component values to what we had before. And this one right here is at 10. So I'm going to go here. I changed it to 10 over here. Actually, I'm going to change this to 20. And the reason why it didn't show up before is because I didn't save it. And then down here, I'm just going to put this to 20. So when I go left and right, we now get the desired look, or feel that we want based on the character. Now I think the next obvious thing to do is not really worry about the jump, but worry about the character turning left and right. And we'll just do that in the next video. I'll see you guys then.